A detailed summary and reflection on Svargarohanika Parva, the book of the ascent to heaven, the final close of the great epic, Yudhishthira's last test in the celestial realms, the shocking sights of enemies in glory and loved ones in pain, the vanishing of illusions, and the peaceful reunion of all souls beyond. Svargarohanika Parva is the 18th and final book of the Mahabharata. It is short in length but carries everything the story has been building toward since the dice hall, since the forest, since the war, since all the partings and deaths and teachings and griefs that filled the 17 books before it. This book tells of Yudhishthira's arrival in heaven and the last test he faces there. He enters the divine realm and is shocked to find Duryodhana seated in honor. He refuses to stay. He is led down a dark and terrible path to what appears to be hell, where he hears the voices of his brothers and Draupadi suffering. He chooses to stay with them rather than return to the comfort of heaven. At that moment the illusion dissolves. The gods appear and tell him he has passed the final test. He bathes in the celestial Ganga, sheds his mortal form, and ascends to the highest heaven where he finds everyone, brothers, Draupadi, Karna, Bhishma, Krishna, even the Kauravas, restored to their true divine forms, free of all anger and pain. The epic ends here in light and reconciliation. The story reaches this point after the long journey of the previous books. The Pandavas have ruled, renounced, walked north, fallen one by one on the mountain path. Yudhishthira has arrived in heaven with the dog that turned out to be his own father Dharma in disguise. Now he stands at the final threshold of the story, and the final threshold of his soul's long journey through a human life that was harder and more extraordinary than any life should have to be. Svargarohanika Parva teaches about what lies on the other side of all of it. Not just heaven as a reward, but the deeper truth that the whole war, the whole story, was always moving toward a reconciliation that earthly life could not complete. This book completes it. Yudhishthira walks into heaven and Indra receives him warmly. The halls are full of light and music and the presence of gods and sages in a peace that is unlike any peace on earth, quieter, more complete, without the underlying tension that even the best moments of mortal life carry. Yudhishthira takes it in, and then he sees Duryodhana. His old enemy is sitting on a golden throne. He is shining. Gods surround him with honor. He looks content in a way that cuts through everything Yudhishthira expected to feel in this place. The sight stops him. He stands in the hall of heaven and feels anger rise in him, not the hot anger of a battlefield but the cold anger of a man whose sense of justice is being violated in a place where he believed justice was absolute. Duryodhana caused the war. Duryodhana refused every offer of peace. Duryodhana sat in the assembly hall and watched Draupadi be humiliated and laughed. Millions of people died because of Duryodhana's pride. And he is here, on earth, shining, at peace. Yudhishthira's whole life has been shaped by trying to do the right thing even when it cost him everything. And this is what he finds when he arrives at the end of that long effort. He cannot simply accept it. That is who he is, and the book does not ask him to pretend otherwise. Yudhishthira turns to Indra and says he will not stay here. Not in a place where Duryodhana is honored, and his brothers and Draupadi are nowhere to be seen. He says, take me to them. Wherever they are, that is where I want to be. Even if they are in hell. He does not say this dramatically. He says it the way he says everything, quietly and with complete certainty, because he means it completely. This is the same man who refused to enter heaven without the dog. The quality that makes him Yudhishthira is not that he follows rules. It is that he follows love. He chooses people over place, family over comfort, presence over honor, every single time. He has been doing it his whole life, and he does it again here at the gate of heaven without hesitation. A celestial messenger comes to guide him, and they leave the bright halls behind. The path starts well enough but changes quickly. The light fades. The air thickens. The smell comes next, rotting flesh, blood, something worse underneath that. Bodies lie on the ground. The ground itself seems wrong, hot under the feet, slick with things that should not be there. Fires burn in the distance without giving light, somehow making the dark darker. Yudhishthira walks through all of it. He does not ask to turn back. He is looking for his family, and he will keep going until he finds them or until there is nowhere left to go. The path ends in hell. The screens are real and close. People suffer in ways that are specific and terrible, and the book does not spare the reader the detail of it. Rivers of boiling blood. Bodies on spikes. Fire that does not consume but only burns. Yudhishthira stands in the middle of it and feels the wrongness of being here press against his chest. He wonders how good people could end up in such a place. He wonders what he did to deserve being led here. Then he hears something that answers every question he was forming with something more immediate and more personal. Draupadi's voice reaches him first. It is weak and it is hers. Then Bhima, the voice that has always been the biggest sound in any room, small now and in pain. Then Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadev. They are calling his name. They are saying, brother. They are saying, we are here, we are in pain, and your presence is the only thing that brings us any relief. Yudhishthira stops walking. He stands in the dark of hell and listens to his family, and everything else stops mattering. Where he is, what this place smells like, what waits for him back in the bright halls with Duryodhana, none of it. They ask him to stay. They say, when you are here the air is cooler. The pain is less. We have no other comfort. Do not go back. Draupadi says, stay for me. The brothers say, stay for us. Yudhishthira listens to every voice and every word. He has been listening to these voices his whole life, in the forest, in the war, across every parting and reunion. These are the people he has loved and fought alongside and sometimes failed and always come back to. He is not going anywhere. He makes his choice without a long deliberation. He says, I will stay. Heaven is not heaven without my family. If they are here, then here is where I belong. He is not performing nobility. He is not calculating merit. He is simply being who he has always been, the person who cannot be separated from the people he loves by any offer, however bright, however comfortable, however divine. He sits down in the dark of hell, and he is at peace in a way he was not in the shining hall where Duryodhana sat on his golden throne. That is Yudhishthira. The book knows it. That is why this is his last test and not someone else's. He turns to the celestial messenger and tells him to go back to Indra. Tell him I am staying. Tell him I choose this. The messenger leaves. Yudhishthira settles into the dark, prepared to wait as long as it takes, prepared to suffer whatever this place asks of him, because his brothers are here and Draupadi is here, and that is sufficient reason for anything. He has given up heaven. He does not feel he has given up anything that mattered. The moment the words leave him, the hell disappears. Not gradually, not like a fading dream, but completely and immediately, the way a test ends when the right answer is given. The dark lifts. The smell goes. The screams stop. The fires go out. Bright light comes from everywhere and nowhere. Indra is there. Dharma is there. Yam, Varuna, the gods of the celestial realms, all present, all looking at Yudhishthira with something that is neither pity nor congratulation but Something that carries both. They are smiling. He passed. Indra speaks. He says this was the final test of your righteousness, and you have passed it by being exactly who you are. Dharma speaks next. He says every king who has lived a mortal life must see hell for whatever sins he carries, however small. Your sin was the half-lie you spoke to Drona on the 15th day of the war, when you said Ashwatthama is dead and whispered elephant under your breath so that the truth was technically present but the effect was the same as a lie. Drona laid down his weapons because of what you said, and Dhrishtadhyumna killed him while he sat in meditation. That is the weight you carried here. This vision was its payment. You have paid it. You have sat in the dark and chosen your family over heaven, and that choice has cleaned what the half-truth left behind. You are free. Yudhishthira takes this in quietly. He has been carrying the weight of that moment since the 15th day of the war. He knew what he did. He knew why he did it, and he knew it was not clean, and he has lived with the knowledge of it across all the years since. The gods are not telling him it was fine. They are telling him it has been accounted for, fully, and that the accounting is done. There is a particular relief in that which is different from being told you did nothing wrong. It is the relief of having the debt acknowledged and settled rather than pretended away. The gods bring him to the celestial Ganga. He goes into the water. What he steps out of it as is not what he stepped into it as. The mortal body goes. The human grief goes, not the memory of it but the weight of it, the thing that grief becomes when it has been carried too long without relief. The sins that still clung to him after everything, the half-truth to Drona and whatever smaller things accumulated across a long human life, they wash away in the water. He steps out on the other side luminous and light in a way no human body can be. The Ganga has been part of this story since Bhishma was born from her. She takes Yudhishthira through his last transformation as she took his ancestor through his first. In his new form, Yudhishthira ascends to the highest heaven. The place is beyond what the book tries to describe at length because some things are beyond description, and the Mahabharata is honest enough to know that. What it gives you is the sense of arrival, the feeling of a journey that was always moving toward this moment finally reaching it, the exhaustion of a long road resolving into the stillness of having arrived. Yudhishthira walks into the highest heaven and looks around at what is there. Krishna is there first. He is in his full divine form, not the charioteer, not the friend, not the king of Dwarka, but Vishnu himself, shining with the light that is older than the sun. Arjuna stands beside him. In his divine form, Arjuna is recognizable but different, the warrior's body gone, what remains the essential Arjuna, the devotion and the skill and the love, freed from the mortal envelope that carried them through the war. They smile at Yudhishthira. He understands in this moment what he always knew and could not quite hold the full weight of during the mortal life, that Krishna was always more than his friend, and that the friendship was always more than what it appeared to be from inside it. He looks further and sees Bhishma, the grandsire who lay on arrows for 58 days teaching everything he knew, shining now in his true form, the son of Ganga, beyond the vow and the war and the arrow bed, fully himself for the first time since before the story began. He sees Karna. Karna looks at him, and there is no hatred in it, no old wound, no memory of insult or battle. He is simply there, Kunti's eldest son. Yudhishthira's eldest brother, standing in the light that was always his by birth and that the mortal world found so many ways to deny him. Yudhishthira looks at Karna's face and feels the grief of the whole of Karna's story move through him one last time and then go still. His brothers are there. Bhima in his divine form still carries something of the largeness that was always Bhima, but the roughness is gone. What remains is the love that was always underneath the roughness. Arjuna is there in two places at once, beside Krishna and beside his brothers, which is exactly where Arjuna always was. Nakula and Sahadev are there, the youngest, the most beautiful, the most precise, themselves in their truest forms. Draupadi is there, not as five husbands' wife, not as the queen whose humiliation set a war in motion, but as herself, complete and sovereign and at peace. Even the Kauravas are there. Duryodhana stands with his brothers, all 99 of them, in divine forms that carry none of the war and none of the hatred. The 100 sons of Gandhari stand in the light of the highest heaven, and the sight of them there does not make what they did right. It simply shows what they were underneath what they did, what every human being is underneath what they do, and that deeper thing is what survives. Standing in the middle of all of it, Yudhishthira understands something that he could not have understood from inside the war or inside the grief that followed it. The war was not an accident. It was not a mistake that could have been avoided if the right person had made the right choice at the right moment, though it was also that. It was a cosmic play, a leela, a movement of the divine through human forms and human choices. Toward an end that the divine always knew, and the human participants could not see until they were standing here on the other side of it. Everyone played their role. Duryodhana played his role. Karna played his role. Bhishma and Drona and all the dead played theirs. The Pandavas played theirs. Krishna played his, which was all of them at once and also something more. The war that produced so much suffering was always also something larger than its own. Suffering. That does not make the suffering not real. It means the suffering was real inside a frame so large that even the war is a small thing inside it. All anger is gone. There is nothing left to be angry about, and no one left to be angry at. What the war divided the highest heaven has gathered back together. The recognition of each other that the war covered over is fully present again. Yudhishthira looks at the faces of everyone he ever loved and everyone he ever fought and feels only the recognition. That is all there is here. That is all there ever was. The Mahabharata ends here. Not with a battle or a teaching or a death or a departure. With everyone together in the light. The epic that began in the forest at Namisha with the sage Sati telling the story to an audience of ascetics gathered for a long sacrifice, that moved through the births and childhoods and education and the dice game and the forest and the war and all the books of teaching and grief and final journeys, comes to rest in this place where no one is separated from anyone they love and no one carries the weight of the mortal world anymore. The last verses of the Mahabharata carry a blessing. They say that whoever hears this story with faith will receive merit. They say the epic is the highest dharma. They say it teaches giving, sacrifice, austerity, and truth. They say Vyas composed it from the overflowing of his heart after meditating on the divine, and that whatever is in it about dharma, and wealth, and pleasure, and liberation is found nowhere else, and what is not in it is not to be found in the world either. This is not a modest claim. The Mahabharata has never been modest about what it is. It is the story of a family, and through the family the story of everything, the story of what human beings do to each other when they forget who they are, and what they find when they remember. Svargarohanika Parva teaches about what waits on the other side of a life fully and honestly lived. It does not promise that everything will be easy or that the right choices will be rewarded quickly or that dharma protects you from suffering. The Mahabharata has spent 17 books making absolutely clear that it does not promise any of those things. What it promises is this, that the choices made from love and loyalty and genuine honesty will matter in the end, that the soul carries its true character through everything the mortal world throws at it, and that at the end of everything the recognition of each other is still there waiting to be felt without the war in the way. Yudhishthira's final test is perfectly designed for who he is. He is not tested with a weapon or a battle or a philosophical riddle. He is tested with what he will choose when heaven is offered on one side, and his family's suffering is on the other. The answer he gives is the same answer he has been giving his whole life in different forms. The people he loves matter more than the comfort he could have without them. That answer, given one final time in hell, is what cleans the last remaining stain from the half-truth he spoke to Drona. The lie was told because the war was at a point where dharma had become deeply complicated, and he made the choice a man makes in that situation, imperfectly and with full awareness of the imperfection. The final test asks him to make a choice that is not complicated at all, and he makes it immediately. That is how the account is settled. The sight of everyone reconciled in heaven is not a statement that what they did to each other did not matter. It is a statement about what is more permanent than any of it. The love that was present between Karna and his brothers before anyone knew they were brothers. The loyalty between Bhishma and the family he served past the point where serving it made any sense. The friendship between Krishna and Arjuna that began before the war and continued in the divine realm after it. These things survived the war. They survived the grief. They survived the long books of teaching and the final journeys. They are what the story was always about. Underneath the battles and the weapons and the political maneuvering and the curses and the cosmic scale of it all, the love between people who belong to each other. The Mahabharata ends with all of them together, and that is the right ending. Svargarohanika Parva is the last of 18 books. It is among the shortest, which is exactly right. The story does not need more length here. It has had 17 books to say everything that needed saying. This book needs only to close what those 17 books opened, and it does that completely. The arc from the first book to the last is enormous. The Adi Parva began with the creation of the world and the births of the characters who would carry the story. Svargarohanika ends with those same characters in their true forms in the highest heaven, free of every earthly complication, free of the bodies and the woes and the grudges and the grief that shaped them during the mortal journey. From birth to death to the realm beyond death, the Mahabharata follows its people all the way through without looking away from any of it. The war that sits at the center of the story occupies roughly 5 of the 18 books in the direct telling. The 13 books before and after it are about what produced the war and what the war produced. That proportion is deliberate. Vyas understood that the war is not the point. The war is what happens when people forget the point. The point is dharma, which is another word for living in right relationship with everything and everyone around you. When that relationship breaks down completely, when pride and jealousy and wounded honor grow large enough, you get Kurukshetra. When it is restored, when all the broken relationships are healed and all the separated souls are gathered back together, you get Svargarohanika. The whole story is the distance between those two things, and the Mahabharata walks every step of it with you and then stands beside you at the end in the light of the highest heaven and says, this is what it was always moving toward. This is where it was always going. Was it worth the journey? The answer is yes. It is always yes. That is what the last book of the Mahabharata says, and it says it in light. This essay is part of the Deep Thoughts series on Mahabharat.at, exploring the Mahabharat's most difficult moral questions, its characters, their choices, and what those choices mean for us today. Read the full essay and discover more at https://mahabharat.at.